So there's been quite a shakeup at TNA Wrestling this week. According to Fightful, multiple employees have been let go. PWInsider initially reported, and Fightful confirmed that longtime producer David Sahadi has been let go. David Sahadi is an OG of TNA. He's been with the company forever. It seemed, I think, like since the early Spike days. He was a WWE guy. He was the one that did the Limp Bizkit My Way video, the music video, leading into WrestleMania that year. It was like him and Kevin Sullivan, but I think he was like the top guy on that. So he was a very popular producer at WWE. Well, they brought him over and he did a good job for a little bit, but then he's in his 60s now and the TV show has not looked good, and he has been basically the director of television for a while. It was Kevin Sullivan's job, not the wrestler, but the producer. Kevin Sullivan left, TNA to go to AEW. He has since been shit canned by AEW. So when Kevin Sullivan left, Dave Sahadi took over, and I'll be honest, and it's not completely his fault. He just doesn't have a budget to work with. But the show has not looked good in a long time, and so he is out. But he has been a significant part of TNA broadcast for years. The report says that he is going to be replaced soon. It does not say who he's going to be replaced by. I have a theory, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, long time producer and the current director of television, or whatever they want to call the position. But everything that gets put on the TV has to go through David Sahadi. He has been let go by the company, and it seemed like, from what I'm hearing, he has kind of been wanting to transition out for a long time. At least that's been the feeling. And Josh Matthews has already taken on a lot of those duties. Would not shock me if Josh Matthews is the guy that just takes over, but he has already Josh Matthews has already kind of assumed a lot of those roles anyway, so it would make sense. But I do have another theory, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, along with Sahadi. Now, this one was, as far as I'm concerned, this one was the bombshell. This one was a huge one. So along with Sahadi, Lou D'Angeli, aka Louie Dangerously from his ECW days. He is TNA's vice president of marketing at Anthem Sports Group. So he was not only a TNA guy, he was working for Anthem, and he was let go. That's huge. I have been insulting and nitpicking their live events department for years. I will say, since I've been covering the company since about 2019, it has been the best it's ever been under him. Without a doubt, by far. He is, like, when he came in, he immediately improved things. He immediately turned things around. They were never like a major success at the box office, but their biggest shows that have come under the Anthem umbrella have come with him at the helm, with him leading. Hard to Kill earlier this year. The White Plains in New York show last year, or for the 20th anniversary, or for the 1000th Impact. Like, that show was pretty decent show, right? Pretty decent sized show, and they're actually going back to White Plains later this year. And then of course Slammiversary coming up, which we'll talk about shortly, but that's been like a historically good, big show for them coming up. So all of the improvements that were made under Lou, since he has come over and taken over as the vice president of marketing. And so I think that's huge. Like, so I was not, when I heard Dave Sahadi was let go, I was like, but when I heard Lou D'Angeli was let go, I was like, okay, now that's actually a big deal. That is concerning to me. And it's only concerning because I don't know who's replacing him. Nobody knows yet at this point, and we'll take a wait and see approach. But I do think that is pretty wild. But he was let go, and D'Angeli, it states here that it was a primary reason as to why CM Punk had been around TNA in recent years. Basically, those Chicago shows, CM Punk would show up to those and was like backstage. This because D'Angeli and Punk are like best friends. Would not shock me to see D'Angeli go back to WWE in some capacity. He was there for a long time, basically having the same job that he had here in TNA, would not shock me to see him go back and take some type of role in WWE. But and then there was a third departure from a similar department, but not a widely recognized name. And these changes are part of Anthem strategy, become more effective in the live event markets. So that is in the live event market, or the live event group that they have going on there. Additionally, RD Evans, one of the guys, some people reported that he was the head of creative. Other people talked about him being like an important piece in creative. He was just a member of the creative team. I don't think he was ever the head of the creative team. I think, in fact, it's not been reported, but a lot of people think that the head of creative is, in fact, Tommy Dreamer. He might not have that title under him, but a lot of people believe that it's Tommy Dreamer. But RD Evans was also he didn't get fired. He actually he straight up quit. He had been frustrated for a long time and decided he was out. He actually sent an email to the entire staff, and he left of his own volition. He sent an email to the TNA staff mentioning his notice. It's clear TNA is in a transition phase, and it'll be interesting to see how these changes play out. Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. The funny thing is, so about RD Evans, why he is always going to be a legend in my book. So one day when he was on the WWE creative team, Vince McMahon just chewed his ass out, right, in front of everybody, chewed his ass out. And then RD Evans looks at him and he goes, "Well, Vince, I hope you learned a lesson." Walked out and never came back and just fucking quit. And I'm like, what a legend. Yeah. I can never hate that guy. But we've been talking about how bland the creative has been, and paint by numbers, and with not only the creative, but with the match outcomes, and more on that, and coming up in my recap of the episode. But he's one of the guys. So like I heard he left, and I was like, okay, fine. Probably no major loss there. The only one of these guys that I feel is a major loss is Lou D'Angeli. Now, here's my theory on what's happening behind the scenes. So Invicta, the MMA promotion that's also owned by Anthem Sports and Entertainment, somehow secured a new distribution deal. We don't know what it is yet. They told Gerard publicly that they will be announcing it next week. I think that Shannon Knapp, the president, wanted to announce it this week, but they told Gerard that it's going to be next week, like they replied to his tweet. Of course, I jumped in there too to get myself over, and asked for the scoop, and they said not even Ben and Jerry's can get the scoop. So they're pretty excited about this distribution deal, and they said that they're committed to running live events every 6 weeks, which I guess is fine. I was thinking that you should probably like run monthly, but it's just what they got with their distribution deal. So they're probably going to run every 6 weeks, which is good for them. I think what they're doing is they're just realigning that aspect of their business, Anthem. They're realigning TNA and Invicta. And I think the same people are probably going to do both jobs in production and in live events. Obviously not creative, because Invicta does not have a creative staff. If they did, that would be weird, and they'd probably get investigated by the federal government. But yeah, I think that that's what this shakeup is about. And in fact, I ran that theory by a prominent pro wrestling journalist. Okay, I'm not going to say who it is, but this man and I shared some DMs because of a tweet that I made, and he DM'd me and tried to give me some insight on it. And then I ran my theory by him, and he agreed. He thinks that's what's happening too. He has not ran with that story yet because he doesn't have enough information, but I think that that's where it's going. And so once it comes out, you guys will know exactly who I was talking about. But at this point, I just can't say it because there's not enough facts there to back it up, not enough sourcing to get that story out. But that is my theory, and I think that theory is going to come out being true, and which makes sense. WWE and UFC just did the same thing, right? Like WWE just shit-canned their president of live events, and I think he was like an international guy, but I can't remember his name. But they've actually cut a lot of people from that department because Endeavor already had those people ready to go, and so they're just kind of merging the two. They're just putting them all under the same umbrella. I think that's what's happening here with Invicta and TNA, and it makes total sense. But it's only going to be a good thing is if the replacement is better than who they had, and are they qualified to be able to do the job. I have not been impressed with a lot of Anthem's hires. In fact, we talked about Richard Schaefer, who had come over. He was like the mind behind Golden Boy Promotions, and he was John Jones's business manager or agent or whatever he was doing. And then of course he got locked into Pro Bellum boxing. It was like an international boxing thing, and turns out that went out of business because they were ties to the Irish mob, but that was like a pretty big deal. But Anthem and Pro Bellum were doing business, and then when Pro Bellum went under because of the mob ties, Anthem ended up hiring Richard Schaefer to be the president of Anthem Sports, and he is no longer in the company already, and that only lasted like a year. So I have not been impressed with a lot of the things that they have done, the changes that they have made, the hires that they have made, and the promises that they have made that they just don't keep. So it would not even shock me if this big new distribution deal that Invictus got is like nothing. Like that wouldn't shock me at all if it was just nothing. I think what they need to do for both Invicta and TNA, if they're going to have the same person directing both shows, which is doable because TNA tapes, once or twice a month, and Invicta going every 6 weeks, I don't think that's a crazy workload. That's almost a weekly workload, three times a month. That's not that bad. I think what they need to do is they need to bring over somebody from like legitimate sports. I don't think they need to hire another wrestling person to run the production. I'm talking about like the director of television. WWE's latest hire of Lee Fitting has been a home freaking run. AEW's recent hire of Mike Mansory has been a flop, right? Mike Mansory came over and was a Kevin Dunn disciple, came over, brought his bullshit to AEW, and I don't think that show has started to look worse than it did before. I don't think they've made any upgrades in 5 years. They had him take over, and I don't like what they're doing right now with their show. And in fact, I watch Monday Night Raw, and it just looks like the more sports-based product as far as the way that the television is shot. It really does. And all the new concepts that Lee Fitting is bringing over. Now, Lee Fitting was a guy that was the director of Monday Night Football. So, he's like a pretty big time dude. I think he did Monday Night Football and College Game Day at one point. And he was the ESPN guy. Now, I'm not saying Anthem is going to hire a Lee Fitting. That's probably above their level. But if they could get somebody, several steps lower than Lee Fitting, but somebody of that ilk, I think that's where they need to go with the director of television. They're going to direct both Invicta and TNA. They need to bring somebody over from the live sports world. They don't have to be wrestling guys. We need some new ideas in this company. We need new ways of doing things, and we need innovative and ways of doing things. I just interviewed Sean Merriman this week, and they're doing tons of innovative stuff with their Lights Out Extreme Fighting promotion. They're putting like sensors in the gloves and all kinds of stuff, and they're doing different things with the cameras. That's what TNA needs to be. They need to be outside the box thinkers, which that's what they used to be whenever they first were created, because Jeff Jarrett is always like thinking outside the box, and that's what they were. But right now, everything's just so damn bland because they got, Dave Sahadi's just been there for 20 years, and he's a WWE washout, and he was, kind of, past his prime, and wasn't checking the cameras to make sure they've been white balanced and color corrected and all the stuff that you need to do to make a television show look good. They just weren't doing. In fact, this week in Kentucky, while the color looked good and all the cameras looked good, audio was okay. The way they were shooting it looked like they were shooting it into the abyss because of the way they had the arena set up. I don't think that their previous director from the Spike TV days, his name's escaping me, but he was the director forever until AEW hired him, and he just recently retired. He was also the director for World Class Championship Wrestling. I don't think that guy would have allowed that to happen. I think they would have had bleachers set up, and the fans would have been well lit, and it would have looked like it was a major television show. I think that's the way that they go. I think they need somebody like that, somebody with a innovative mindset and a sports mindset. Oh yes, Keith Mitchell. Yeah, thank you, Lucha. And Lucha, I see you in the chat. I don't want to lose my train of thought, but I'm gonna get to your comments. And Godilla, yes sir, Godilla. I see you there in the chat too. That's what they need though. They need somebody innovative with some ideas, because this company has been lacking innovative ideas for a long time. As far as their live events thing, that makes total sense in the world, that they would, Invicta and TNA would have the same live events, department, especially because they're only running, Invicta's only running every 6 weeks. So that makes total sense. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who they have in mind, but I hope it's somebody good. All right, now let's get to the chat. Okay. Let's see. Lucha says, give the effing book to Sami Callihan. I don't know if you give him the book, but I think he should be on the creative team. I think Matt Hardy should be too. I think they need to lock Matt Hardy in and bring him as part of the creative team. And I thought that whenever he was in the company before he left to WWE, because he was bringing tons of innovative ideas. Now, I don't want him to bring a bunch of sci-fi bullshit. I think that only worked with the Hardy compound. I don't think anybody else can do it and get it over. But yeah, I think so. And I think Sami, if you lean into his best tendencies and block out his worst ideas, it could be really good. Like Tommy Dreamer has been in that position for a long time too. We need to freshen things up a little bit. So when RD Evans quit, because he's just been growing increasingly frustrated, I get it. I'm like, you know what? He hadn't had a good idea in a long time. So let's get some new blood in here. And then Lucha Doncic says, Invicta to TNA Plus. Yeah, that you know what, that doesn't that would not shock me either if they just end up doing the super app thing, the Anthem Plus super app that I had talked about years ago. That wouldn't shock me either. And then Godilla says, yeah, he found me. Well, you found me. I put the link in our chat, brother. Put the link in our chat. Okay. Now, the last thing on this, the major backstage shakeup is, with Lou D'Angeli and Dave Sahadi specifically. I don't know about RD Evans, but Lou D'Angeli and Dave Sahadi specifically. It also seems like Anthem is just trying to further distance themselves from the Scott D'Amore era, because there's been some rumblings out there that Scott D'Amore has been feeding some of the dirt sheets, some, I would say, negative information, or feeding it to them in a way that makes it sound negative when it's really not. And that, I think people think that, and they're trying to keep people from feeding information to Scott D'Amore. So I think that I think them removing Lou D'Angeli and Dave Sahadi specifically is one more step, further distancing themselves from Scott D'Amore. Dave Meltzer took to his newsletter earlier this week, and he had reported that there was some major shakeups happening, and then he ended the TNA section by saying that they don't have any events booked past Tampa, August 2nd and August 3rd. And people were like, they took to Twitter, like, and especially like the people who only pay attention to TNA when they think that TNA is dying, because people have been wanting this company to die for 20 years. They really just want to be right about something, because their lives are so worthless and miserable. They just want to be right about this. So they go out there and then they start going, oh, TNA's dead, TNA's dead, TNA's dead. And it's just like, what makes you say that? Oh, because they don't have any events booked past August. And I'm like, you guys do realize that we're just now starting in June, and August is 2 months away? That is pretty par for the course for Impact, for them not to have anything announced in September. In fact, August, what they have is, they're doing a month of tapings at the beginning of August, which should take them right through the end of the month, where they'll probably announce something like for Emergence, which is the typical August, TNA Plus show. They'll probably announce something here in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, Sean Ross Sapp went to Fightful Select and said, yeah, that basically they already have something in the works for the end of August. Well, TNA put out a call for street team members for White Plains, New York, Toronto, Memphis, and Atlanta. Those dates just have not been announced yet. So I think it might not be Scott D'Amore himself, but people from his camp are putting out information, making it seem like, TNA is dying. And then Meltzer put it in his newsletter. And I don't think Meltzer, and I actually talked to somebody that's friends with Meltzer, so he didn't mean it to come off so ominous. That was just the information that he was given, and he just kind of threw it in there and walked away from it. And then people decided to interpret it the way they wanted to interpret it, because it made it seem like there was this wild negative story when that just wasn't the case. It really wasn't the case. So, but then the follow-up, what happens later in the day, then we find out that it's Dave Sahadi, it's Lou D'Angeli, and then R.D. Evans are all leaving, and it's like, okay, well, the sky is falling, when in reality it's just, Invicta and TNA are probably realigning they're probably just realigning their live events and their production teams. That seems to be all that this is. So I think everybody needs to just chill out a little bit. Although the Lou D'Angeli thing does worry me. I'm not going to say I'm not concerned, but I think everybody needs to chill out a little bit on the TNA is dead talk.